Change takes time, growth takes work, but showing up every day is progress.
This is the 365 Proof Podcast, where we share real stories, honest conversations, and practical insight from mental health experts, addiction specialists, and people living the message.
If you're looking for guidance, inspiration, or real insight into recovery and purpose, you're in the right place.
Welcome back to the 365 Proof Podcast by Defining Wellness, where we hear from industry experts, community advocates, people living the message all around substance abuse and mental health. I'm your host, Daniel Phyfer, and today we are joined by a special guest, Jeff Skillen. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, Daniel. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, Jeff is the CEO of SkillSet Enterprises, and he's a marketing guru, if you ask me. He is also the co-host of the Mastermind podcast with Snapshot Interactive based out of Nashville. They're also our digital marketing partners. So in turn, Jeff has also helped us as an organization tremendously with our marketing strategy. So Jeff has quite the story in multiple different industries and how in the world he ended up here. And I'm really excited for everybody to hear about it. So Jeff, welcome. Glad you're here.
I'm going to do my best to behave today.
Yeah.
So
We'll be all right.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's really nice to be like in the guest seat for a change.
For sure.
I enjoy hosting and co-hosting, but it's I'll do my best. How's that?
That sounds like a plan. Well, we can just get right into it.
Yeah.
Jeff is a consultant.
Yep.
And has consulted in the music industry. Music and entertainment is where it started, but I can tell you from my experience knowing Jeff, and really not that long, that he has a true marketing brain. It's authentic. He has integrity, purpose. It's remarkable. So I'm really excited to hear how you have shifted from one space to another. I can relate very much so.
Yeah.
And just bringing that passion for what you do kind of wherever you go and what's different, what's the same. So I would love for you to kind of tell us about you first. Tell us about your journey here, and then we can kind of get into everything else.
Well, first of all, it's great to be here. I love what you're doing with the podcast. And I mean, Daniel, I remember the phone calls that we had back and forth. We were dreaming this up, and it's and now here it is, in full glory. So it's really cool to see that kind of,
it's exciting,
come to be. And the reason I bring that up is not only, of course, I'm proud that we're doing that, but one through line for me that has always been true is that make it happen has kind of always been a thing for me. And each step along the way, it's like I have had a very unconventional, non-traditional career, so to speak. But the thing that has always been true is that when the door opens, I'm going to walk through it.
Right.
And there's been sort of a make it happen mentality for me, where it's like, even when conditions aren't right, even when things are not ideal, even when things don't always make sense, I'm going to find a way to make it happen.
Action.
Yeah. Action is the step. And so, it started off for me that, growing up, music came very easy to me. I was blessed or cursed with perfect pitch. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I hear things, and I'm like, oh, that's a G, or
You're born with that.
I was born with that. And so, but music came very easy for me. And then ever since my earliest days, I just thought I was going to be a record producer. I just thought that I was going to produce big records. And I was like, I remember being just little, and people didn't even know what that was. And it was like, that's what I want to do. I was just fascinated with how things started with zero and then turned into something grand, and I promise there's a through line here.
I love it. Let's go.
So I was very fortunate early to have an opportunity to perform. I was good enough to be able to play to play professionally. And what I quickly realized was, it's like, nobody starts producing records. It's like you have to come up and you have to pay your dues and all that sort of stuff. But one thing that I learned early on for me was, if you're not going to be the star, you're going to be a sideman, you're going to be in the band. That's basically a blue collar job.
Right.
That's going to be you're told when to show up, you're told what to do, you make a noise when pointed to. That kind of energy. And it's like, and I learned that really young. Okay. But there was a guy that came to gigs, who came late and left early, and he had a briefcase, and he usually had the money. And I was like, how do I get to be that guy?
Yeah, that's where I want to be.
Yeah, there you go. And I was like, how do I take what I can already do, which is I can perform? I was great vibing with people, creating, that was never an issue for me, right? But it was like I could perform, but I was like, what's a future in this? Because I looked around and I was very young. And I looked around and I was like, these are people in their 40s, 50s, 60s doing something that I'm doing very early. And I'm like, okay, I see where this goes. Mm-hmm. And then I look at this other guy who's out there who shows up, and I'm like, how do I get to be that guy? And so then, I went to college. I ended up getting a double major in music and business. And so it's like I had the full-on business situation. And it's not like these degrees now where they combine a quote-unquote music business degree. No. I learned straight-up business and then straight-up music. And then, I went to Nashville and just started knocking on doors. And so here's where the make it happen part comes to play. There are no jobs in that world. So I just started knocking on doors, and I figured that people would want to hire me. And of course, nobody did. Mm-hmm. And so then what I started doing was I started teaching lessons, and I started looking around to figure out, how am I going to get my foot in the door? How am I going to get my foot in the door? And I was researching. And there was an organization in Nashville that was not doing country music. They were doing pop and rock. And what they were doing was they were managing record producers. So remember, that's what I grew up saying that I was going to do, is I was going to be a record producer. Well, I do not recommend this to anyone who's listening, but this is what I did. So the person who owned that company, I found out where their office was, and I camped out. And as he was leaving the office and walking to his car, I just inserted myself into his world.
Yeah.
And I just said, look, I know you don't know me, and all I want you to do is, I'm going to start working here on Monday. You don't know that, but I am. I'm going to start working here on Monday. And then after a period of time, if that turns into something, you're going to want to pay me. Mm-hmm. But if you don't, I'll leave. No questions asked. And he looked at me like, like you would expect. Mm-hmm. Right. And he's like, is this a joke? And I'm like, no, I just told you what's going to happen.
Right.
I'm going to start here on Monday. And I showed up. On Monday. And so I ended up working there for free for 6 months. And then fast forward a year into that, I was actually his partner.
Wow.
So that was my first make it happen story. Was that too long of a back?
No, I love it. I love it. And I have been in a place in my life where I have taken that jump.
Yes.
It's like, this is it. God has put this in front of me. I'm jumping.
Yes.
And I'm committed to it, and moving my feet is the only option.
Yes.
So I can respect it. And that's the marketing guy in you too, a little bit.
Totally.
I'm sure we'll get into that.
Oh yeah, totally. So. And so then I was really fortunate that this is really where I was very fortunate. This was in Nashville. I mean, listen, the Southern accent gives it away. I was never able to scrub the Southern accent, and I'm actually grateful that I wasn't,
Right.
I was surrounded by incredible mentors, where to do what these people do, they are at the top of their game. I mean, these are like the top songwriters, the top record producers, the top music industry executives. And I just watched how accomplished they were, and watched how they carried themselves, and watched what they did. And I don't want to name them all, because it's like some are with us still and some are not.
Right.
But I was surrounded by that, and I watched the way that they could command a room, and the way that they could see potential in someone, and the way they pulled that potential out of people. This is where I first really started honing moving from being a musician to being a creator, to being a creative. And like the perfect example that comes to mind for me is, again, at this point, I'm working at a company where we're managing record producers. So we would constantly have a stream of people who wanted to be an artist. And they would come audition for us. And we would sit in that room, and here's what stood out to me. So many people would come into that room, and they would be like, I can sing anything. I can be anything. Just give me the right song, and I will do it. In other words, mold me to what will sell. Those never worked out, ever. What we prayed for every day was somebody who walked in who already knew who they were and who already had an authentic voice that they just needed some crafting. And that's when it really hit me, where authenticity and storytelling, that is the marketing through line. It always is. And I was so grateful. It's like, again, you might already see sort of a through line here was like, I'm so grateful to have learned lessons early.
Right.
And part of that is being awake and paying attention and you know, being moldable. But that was a huge thing for me when I was like, we passed on incredible singers. They were technically amazing, but those technically amazing singers were better to be like demo singers.
Gotcha.
Because they could put on, you know, sound like this, do like this. They could mimic.
Right.
But the magic happens when you actually find that authentic.
And uniqueness, right?
The uniqueness.
Yeah.
That's the essence of marketing, is to recognize it, honor it, and then mold it into a story that actually relates and repeats.
So that was like your light bulb moment.
Yes.
One could say.
There was that, and there was another light bulb moment that actually set me to where I'm sitting in this chair today. And that was one of my early mentors, and I will name this one because, you know, I doubt he'll ever hear it. You never know, but I want him to know how much I appreciate him. He was the president of Warner Brothers Records in Nashville. His name was Jim Ed Norman. And Jim Ed saw something in me as a young person, and he pulled me aside one day and he was like, look, he said, I'm going to give you some advice. And I was like, okay, I'm game. And he said, anybody can make money in this world. Few can make a difference. He said, you have the ability to make a difference. And he said, I want you to chase that in your life.
That's so cool. Powerful.
And I'm actually getting shivers now just thinking about that moment because it was delivered with that kind of emphasis and it was really heartfelt. And I'm like, here's a man who did not need to share that with me. Here's a man that could have gone on and done, you know, gone on about his day and not cared about me at all. But the fact that he actually reached down and lifted me up and actually saw something in me has impacted me in ways that still show up.
How do you even respond to that? You know, I'm thinking if somebody said that to me, thank you. You know, I mean, that is one of probably the best compliment you could ever receive.
Well, I'll tell you how I responded. I took it like a pledge. I basically looked at him and I said, I'll do that. And I said, I won't let you down.
That is so cool. Wow. And so how old are you at this point, Jeff?
Early 20s.
Early 20s?
Yeah.
Yeah, just getting started.
Just getting
fresh out of college.
Yeah, fresh out of college, early 20s. And I mean, my living situation, I mean, it was kind of a disaster.
Was it?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, it was just like, you know, 1-bedroom apartment on Music Road.
Yeah.
My parents worried about me. It's like, I mean, my parents didn't understand at all what I was getting myself into. And they thought that I was just heading on a path of dereliction.
Unbelievable. So that happens, and then what's next?
Well, so fast forward because we got to get to this industry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because I don't want to
stories for years.
I know, and I don't want to bore all the listeners, and they're like, "What's the point to all this?" But I mean, there's a point, I can promise. Fast forward, an opportunity to I'm going to move through a couple of industries here.
Okay.
So really learned early marketing chops in terms of being able to build careers, market. Sell records, sell tickets, all those things is like promote shows. I did basically every job in the music industry. I was a promoter. I was a producer. I was a manager. I was a record label executive. And so in a matter of about 8 to 10 years, we got an opportunity to actually sell that company that I, willed my way into.
Mm-hmm.
And we sold that company, and then I moved out west at that time because there was a guy who owned a distribution company in the music industry. Long story short, that distribution company started doing pick, pack, and ship fulfillment for a tiny little company called Amazon.com. And at that time, Amazon was only doing books. So that was way early on Amazon. And
Garage days, probably.
Yeah. So he owned a warehouse, and it's like he was a CD, DVD, and game distributor. And then Amazon struck an exclusive relationship with him, and I got an opportunity to basically be general manager of this distribution company that was tiny at the time. And we built a distribution business on the back of Amazon.com.
Wow.
So, I mean, again, so it's like the learning curve for me was incredible in that opportunity. And that happened because we started a little record label within that distribution company, and I ran that record label.
Right.
And that company, I mean, the blessing and the curse was that company went public on the back of the Amazon.com story. But with every great .com story, that company went up like a rocket and then went down like a lead balloon. And so within a year of that IPO, when we were all high-fiving ourselves, it went bankrupt.
You were upside down.
We were upside down. That one went bankrupt. And so all of those, made some incredible contacts. And so now I'm in the .com world. So now I've gone from, music to music industry to the .com world. I then moved to Los Angeles, California, and I was a very early employee at a company called DTS, Digital Theater Systems. And Digital Theater System did surround audio for movies. And I was there right as that one was starting. I was very early on when Steven Spielberg came in and we did a demonstration of what surround audio could do for film. And he was like, well, Dolby's okay, but I need something that's a little sharper because I got this little dinosaur movie that I'm going to make called Jurassic Park. And I know this all seems, it's a pretty fantastical story when you think about it, right? And so he was like, if you guys could figure out a way to make it sound like this dinosaur is jumping over someone's head in the movie and people really believe it, he was like, I'll give you the seed money to fund this company, basically to start this company. And he's like, but I'm going to need this system in 200 theaters in Los Angeles for the launch of this movie. Mm. And so then that became make it happen.
Right.
Right. So that happened. And then that turned into, that turned into surround audio in music theaters, turned into DVDs, and that turned into the consumer electronics industry. So I was actually fortunate in that whole journey to be involved in writing the audio standard for DVD, Blu-ray, HD DVD. And again, Daniel, I hope what you're seeing is kind of a path here that's like when a door opens, we're going to walk through and we're going to make something happen and use all of the skills that you've learned along the way to make it happen. Now, what's the marketing angle with this? Well, DTS needed a marketing story because we were the little rebel upstart company going against the 800-pound gorilla Dolby. Mm-hmm. DTS was the first company I got an opportunity to brand. And so we created this rebel story around that. And then why, we were the pesky little, company, the can-do startup against the establishment, but we had the better product.
Right.
And so, I'm really proud of that story because, that DTS logo, some of you guys can rummage through your closet. You'll see a DVD player that's got that little DTS logo. Some of your DVD, your DVD player, your DVDs. I realize I'm dating myself here, but this is kind of the story.
Great. It's great.
And it's like you can see that DTS logo that came to stand for premium audio, premium surround, and that company went public on the back of the DVD story. Okay. And so at that point, my wife and I had 2 children, and we didn't really want to raise them in Southern California. So I got an opportunity to move back to Nashville. And I had an opportunity to go to Gibson Guitar, and I was head of worldwide entertainment relations for Gibson Guitar.
That is so cool.
And so this is where the marriage of the music industry, the technology industry, and then the branding and the marketing industry, because in that role, our job was to make sure that Gibson brand showed up in every media possible. So that was if if it was TV, if it was advertising, anything that, internet, if it was YouTube, it was anything that got those instruments front and center and eyeballs for them. That was the marketing plan. So it's like, if your hero plays it, you'll buy it.
Right. Michael Jordan.
That was the whole thing. And so we were very early into like product placement. So now, when you see a Coca-Cola can in, a Netflix show, that was part of it. But I guarantee you, when you see School of Rock and when you see and it's like, if there's a musical instrument, I'll bet you dollars to donuts, it's a Gibson instrument.
That's crazy.
So I had 12 very talented professionals all around the world reported to me, and we schemed up all sorts of incredible marketing ideas for that brand. So then it's like, another opportunity to brand a company, to brand a product. And we believed, again, just like all the way back to my early music industry days, it's got to be real. It's got to be authentic. It can't be pretend. And so our logo, the tagline for Gibson at the time there was just pure.
Love that.
It was, Gibson pure. That was the whole clean,
yeah.
Pure. It was just like, you got the real thing. It's like, there's only one. There's the real thing. And so again, it's like, Daniel, stop me if I'm
no, keep going.
Because I'm getting there. Okay. I promise. So we did a lot of very cool things at Gibson, and I'm really proud of a lot of them. But the one that sort of launched me into being a consultant in the greater world, again, the next Make It Happen story, was I brought a branding deal to Gibson Guitar, and that was the game Guitar Hero. And I know this all seems like a pretty incredulous story, but every bit of it is true. It was a branding opportunity that the CEO at the time loved, but hated the fact that I brought it. Hated the fact that this game or this opportunity didn't go directly to him. And not only was every avatar playing a Gibson guitar, the controller was a Gibson guitar, and it's the whole idea of starting in a basement and learning I love rock and roll all the way up to being Aerosmith and at an arena and all that sort of stuff. It's pretty fantastical.
It is.
But negotiated not only that branding deal, but also a revenue opportunity for the company. And you would think that would be celebrated. But Daniel, you and I were talking yesterday about a book that I recommend everybody read, and that's the Robert Greene's law, the 45 Laws of Power. And the first law of power is never outshine the master. Mm. And I learned that lesson the hard way, where that deal I outshone the master. And I learned that my time there was over.
Wow.
And so that's when I launched my own consulting company, SkillSet Enterprises. Skillen is the last name. You got to do something with that.
It's clever. I love it.
You got to do something with that. So again, on the strength of those success stories, I launched that consulting company, doing marketing, doing branding for. At that time, it was I was still doing technology companies. I was still doing music companies. I was doing musical industry companies. Here's where we pivot into behavioral health.
One sec.
Yeah.
There's two common themes here. Well, at that point when SkillSet is born,
yep.
You have proof of concept.
Got the track record.
You've got the track record.
Yep.
But one common theme, and this is something that was taught to me when I was young. It seems like you had good people around you.
Oh, 100%. I appreciate you bringing that up, because I really don't want this. I don't want this story to sound like an Italian aria, like me. It's like I had so many incredible people around me, and I was a sponge.
Yeah.
I may portray it as though I did these things, but it was just an incredible team, and I was soaking up all of this stuff. And it's like every step along the way, I had incredible mentors that I was humble enough to listen to, humble enough to learn from. And what I always try to do is whatever people bring, I want to totally absorb that, but then I want to see what, if anything, I can add to that mix.
Right.
Is there any sort of spice that I can bring to this? And we used to joke at Gibson all the time about, well, if you want to supersize it, go to Jeff.
Right.
That was always the joke. Is just like
Supersize all of it.
it's like, hey, here's the germ of a great idea. Let's see if we can supersize it.
Yeah.
And then we would get together and riff on that. But it's like that became sort of a superpower. But it was as the result of creating an environment of incredible people and always just remaining open. You know, I learned as a musician early on, and then also through like improv and theater and things like that, you never want to do anything that kills the scene. Mm-hmm. If somebody's got a groove going,
let it ride.
Let it ride. And it's like, and you want to add to it if you can. And you know what? If you can't, don't.
Stay back.
Stay back.
Yeah.
Let it happen.
Love that.
I just learned that. I learned that skill early in music, and it has been so helpful.
That is really cool. So again, I was told, surround yourself with good people. The second you think you know everything, you're in trouble.
Yes.
Always be open and always be a seeker. And it sounds like that's quite literally what your story has been. I mean, you were born with the rhythm.
Yep.
You had the passion, and you just walked in the door.
Well, and I think the only thing that I would add to that is just there's this internal combustion engine of just make it happen.
Right.
Where it was just I just had this ambition that just wouldn't stop, you know. And I'm also just intensely curious.
Right.
So when an opportunity or a door opens, I virtually never say no, because every step along the way it just fed me with more great people, more great adventures, and it just helped me become a more well-rounded human.
So you walk out of the door into the next door.
Yes.
Let's talk about the next door.
Okay. So the next door, and here's where we get to behavioral health, because I mean, if people are listening to this and they've gotten this far, they're hoping that
they're waiting. Yeah, no, it's good. We're in good shape.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Daniel.
No, I love it.
A little long-winded.
It's a great story.
So I was consulting for a digital music company at the time, and they thought that they had an answer to the PC version of iTunes. Okay. So this is, again, I'm dating myself here, but it's important that you know these things. It's like, this was early on where Apple had come up with iTunes, and the PC world was trying to come up with their solution to it, because Apple was going to eat their lunch. Mm-hmm. So I was consulting a company that had come up with what they thought was that solution. And they had a small little division that wanted to be sort of a streaming radio service, kind of Last FM, if anybody remembers, you know, some of these early, you know, this, you know, think about this, you know, Spotify didn't even exist at that point. Anyway, I had a connection with Dell Computer. And so I was like, you know, Dell Computer would love to have a Last FM platform that they could ship with their computers. And so I was like, hey, why don't we see if we can actually make a deal happen for that to happen, or to go forward. So it'd be a win for Dell. It'd be a win for this company. Here's where it pivots. Product manager for that division who's become a great friend of mine, Lee Pepper. So Lee Pepper, and my co-host of Mastermind, mm-hmm. Lee Pepper, we met through this, what ultimately was a failed opportunity, but we got to a deal memo situation. That company thought too much of themselves, and they actually turned down that opportunity with Dell. But my friendship with Lee Pepper was formed. That company ultimately went out of business, like a lot of those early, you know, digital music platforms did. And Lee was recruited into a company called Foundations Recovery Network. Mm-hmm. Lee was recruited to be the chief technology officer at Foundations Recovery Network. And he showed up right at sort of a transition time where Michael Cartwright was at the tail end of that.
Okay.
And then there was an opportunity for Lee to come in. And he, like I said, he came in as a chief technology officer. And then when Michael Cartwright separated from Foundations, they reformed that management team. And that was Rob Wagner, Richard Rogers, and they gave Lee Pepper an opportunity to be the chief marketing officer at Foundations Recovery Network. And so one of Lee's first calls was to me and said, hey, would you like to bring some of your marketing chops into an industry that could use some help on the marketing side? And so, and hence my career in the behavioral health world, or I should say my introduction to the behavioral health world happened at Foundations Recovery Network with Lee Pepper.
Wow. And when was that?
I'm going to say 2012.
2012.
I don't quote me on that date,
Ish.
but I'm going to say ish. I mean, it was kind of in that area.
So
And it may have been earlier, honestly, as I'm thinking about it. So let me come back to you on the date on that.
It's all right. What did marketing look like in behavioral healthcare at that point?
It was a very stale marketing approach. And some of your older listeners are going to know this, but believe it or not, it was the yellow pages in the phone book. So, Lee and I still joke about this now, and it was literally coming up with a phone number for AA Aardvark recovery.
Yeah.
So that you would be, and then you'd run ads, but you'd want to make sure that you were always in the A's.
Yeah. At the beginning.
At the beginning. I mean, it literally started just
It's like modern day SEO. You want to be at the top.
Exactly. You want to be at the top of the listing. And
Right.
so you would want to be in the A's, in the yellow pages. And insane amount of money in yellow page listings and yellow page ads and direct phone numbers directly to call centers to take those phone calls.
Gotcha. And that's how it started. I mean, I can remember, and I'll age myself, I know. I mean, I remember being really young, and it was kind of yellow pages. A couple of people still got the yellow pages.
Right.
And they had the indentions for the letters.
That's right.
Because it was so big.
Yeah, that's right.
And I just remember being a kid and, with the ADD that I was born with, I just remember going through to each of those letters and how big that book was. It's crazy to at the time I was a kid, I had no idea, but thinking about it now, that was it, right?
Yes. Oh yeah.
I mean, was there TV? Was there commercial? I mean, what did that look like?
Well, I mean,
media-wise?
there were some like early TV, but you think about TV now, you think about cable, you think about internet. It's hard to believe, but I mean, back then there were a handful of channels.
Right.
And then what a lot of people did was just buy excess inventory overnight.
Gotcha.
So treatment centers might do these really cheesy ads, and then they were kind of the kind of thing that you cringe to look at now.
Yeah.
But it's but even those were not super successful, so it's it was billboards and print advertising, but the most successful people were kind of they were kind of sharp operators in the yellow pages. It's kind of what they did.
So from that point on, and you and I have talked about this briefly before, there were some highs and some lows.
Yes.
As far as marketing goes in this
Yes.
space. Before we get into that, though, I am curious, being a business development guy, what did BD look like back then?
Gotcha. Well, I'm really glad you brought that up because, again, bringing my experience forward into everything that I've done, I've always been a giant fan and a believer in relationship marketing.
Got to have it.
You have to have it. And up until then, the formula that we discovered at Foundations that we kind of turned on its head, we kept the best and we got rid of the rest and then built new scaffolding. But one thing that was absolutely working was business development people who at that time we were talking about, we were talking about clergy, we were talking about pastors, we were talking about rabbis, we were talking about primary care docs. It's who do you trust to give you at that time was, kind of advice on the down low.
And stigma, sorry to interrupt, but stigma back then was
yes.
at a much
Yes.
higher level than it is now.
I think one of our primary things that we did at Foundations is we created an entire movement called Heroes in Recovery about removing stigma to refer people to treatment. But now it's almost to a certain degree, yes, there's stigma now, but not nearly what it used to be back then. So business development back in those days were you had trusted relationships, but things were kind of on what I call the whisper net. It's like
Real hush hush.
it was real hush hush, but you had strong relationships, and there was some sort of B2B from programs to programs, but it was really more about community outreach at that time. Okay. And then what they would do is we would try to have actual therapists or counselors answer those phone calls.
Oh, that's great.
And so the idea at Foundations at the time was, well, we get those referrals kind of on the hush. They call somebody that is licensed or trained more as a clinical approach to kind of intervene on them to get them into treatment. And that worked to a certain extent. We decided to keep that model. So that was like a that was like a keep the best, but we started really pivoting on lose the rest. And the lose the rest was shift away from the yellow pages and start truly digging into search engine optimization, Google advertising. And at that time, this was early days, and Lee was brilliant with this strategy. I have to give Lee a ton of credit for understanding organic search, because at that time, foundations, we ended up building 150, 200 websites. And these were all like micro websites, that was like soccermom.com, and things like that, where we spoke to specific niches in the industry. And it was just like, to get people help. And we would have, each one of those would have a discrete phone number or source that would go to that centralized admissions line, and we'd have those counselors work them in. Well, the next shift that we made, we quickly realized that it was like, the counselors were great. Everybody loved them. We needed to get them to be a little bit more efficient. Mm-hmm. And the next real innovation that Lee brought, and then I assisted with, was we're like, wow, could we ever teach a counselor to be a salesperson? Or would it be easier to have a salesperson and then teach them clinical skills? We played with that model. And how do you think that went down, Daniel?
Oh my gosh, I'm sure it was messy.
We ultimately landed on the fact that what we wanted to do was get sharp people with sales skills and teach them clinical.
Yeah.
Because while those clinicians are incredible for those business development referrals, they were not great at taking people that were calling in on those websites.
The way I've been told, the way I understand it is, therapists are never going to do anything in a hurry. Mm-hmm. And when you have someone call in crisis, and you know how the addict brain works, you know that the opportunity to help this person who may never have this chance again within the next hour.
Right.
You've got to be able to have that skill set to move efficiently and quickly.
That's right.
To avoid crisis.
Well, and I know that some people may shudder when I use the word sales when it comes to that. But the fact of the matter is, I view sales as a profession, mm-hmm. not as a gimmick.
Right.
I believe that sales is a noble profession, and if it's done right, it looks and sounds a lot like motivational interviewing. I mean, your job is to help people, is to be a skilled guide. Your job is to help navigate people to make a quality decision. And that's where therapists, like, I think, to just dovetail on what you said, keeping an urgency in the conversation and then navigating them to make a quality decision. Just like, I want to walk you to treatment here if it makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense here, let's get you somewhere.
Right.
Let's actually get you to make a decision. And that's where a professional salesperson can learn clinical skills to then navigate someone effectively. And that really became the turning point at Foundations, because we were generating a ton of phone calls off of these websites that Lee built. And we were generating those phone calls, but we needed to make sure that we actually amped the conversions.
Right.
Lee called me one day and he was like, wow, do you know anybody that can help us with this sales training? And I was like, yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. And so then I made a referral to Rory Vaden, who was at Southwestern Consulting, and they were books salespeople. And so we were one of the first, Foundations was one of the first outside clients that Southwestern took on to teach sales training. And Rory Vaden, some of your listeners may know, but you can Google Rory Vaden. Rory is now a New York Times bestselling author. He wrote a book called Take the Stairs. And he's a fascinating guy. And so Lee and myself, and then Rory and his now wife, Amanda, she goes by AJ, we did sales training for that admissions team. And we hired people, specifically the skill set was a compassionate salesperson, someone with a big heart who's open to learning these clinical skills and can move someone towards a life in recovery.
At this point, Jeff, because as you're very well aware, a lot of people who work in our industry are in recovery. Yep. At this point, was that still a common theme or not so much?
Well, I came to realize at that point in my career, about a third of the people in my phone were in recovery.
Right.
And some of the people that I admired the most were working a really solid program.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, some of the most well-adjusted humans that I knew and know
You have to.
are working a program. And so it's like I work sort of a shadow program myself. It's like I am not in recovery, but I have worked the steps in my own way,
Mm-hmm.
in my own life. And what that does for a human is it's immeasurable.
There's no question. That's interesting. So
I guess, I mean, to answer your question, I mean, certainly we didn't need people, but we needed people who were passionate about helping other people get to a better place in their life,
right.
who knew about what recovery could mean.
And, we have on our admissions team, we have both sides.
Yes.
And that is, it's necessary.
Yes.
Because maybe they can pick up on things or whatever the case may be. But we've seen it doesn't matter. The recovery aspect doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, I guess I go back to where this conversation started with, this notion of this admonishment that I got about making a difference.
Right.
When you meet somebody, whether they've got that in them. I mean, you just know, right,
Mm-hmm.
Daniel?
Yes.
And so when you meet somebody that is committed to actually making a difference in the lives of others, then it's like, this is some material that we know we can work with.
Yeah.
There's that authenticity, there's this realness, there's this compassion that you're like, okay, I know that this person has got the heart for this, and I know this person actually wants to make a difference in the lives of others.
For sure. And those are the people that's who you want to surround yourself with.
Well, and I mean, that's why I view, and again, I use the word sales unapologetically because I view it as a noble profession.
Mm-hmm.
I view it as guiding people to a place that maybe they didn't know existed.
Yeah, for sure. So foundations.
Yep.
You guys sell.
Yeah. So we actually went through a couple of transactions with foundations to a family office, and then ultimately UHS acquired foundations. And I mean, that was a really big transaction. And I give a ton of credit to Lee trusting me to continue to consult with foundations all through the years there. But I mean, I'm super proud of what we built at Foundations. Sure. And it's, I worked not only with the business development team, I was the coach to a lot of people on that business development team. I was the personal coach to a lot of the people on that admissions team, to the group CEOs, to the C group. And even when they were going through the roadshow to actually sell, I was responsible for help shape the message for what that story was.
Right.
So, I mean, for me, it's like storytelling and messaging has been the through line, Your
experiences, I mean, you're at the beginning.
Yeah.
And you're going not to the end, but I mean, well,
the beginning is what I love the most.
Right.
What I love the most is actually coming into a situation that maybe feels a little messy, that needs some clarity, that actually needs some structure, that actually needs some storytelling, that needs help finding its voice. That's the area where I feel like I really thrive and where I love the most.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so from Foundations, I've played a chief growth officer role at Recovery Ways. I've worked with some really great programs like the Meadows, BRC when Marcia Stone was running BRC, some other programs in the industry. I helped put Family First Adolescent Services on the map. I showed up with Family First at a time where they were just as I described, where they were kind of honestly adolescent.
Right.
They needed some structure and they needed some molding and they needed, that was a whole branding and a messaging story, and really help put them on the map, and then evolve adolescent behavioral health out in California. And so, that's where I found that I find great joy in bringing those stories together and then help propel something forward and help an organization be bigger than what they thought they could do. Mm. And that's where I find myself here at Defining Wellness. Right.
I was going to bring it back to that. So the landscape has changed. There's been ups and downs.
Yes.
Now we're at the forefront of this AI stuff.
Yeah. I mean, Daniel, we were talking about this yesterday, and there have been peaks and valleys. And you can almost follow the innovation side of technology in terms of the peaks and valleys. Like, early on, like what Lee and I were doing at Foundations in the early Wild West days of the internet, there were some programs out there that they were like, we don't need traditional business development. I mean, we can do all of this digitally. And those programs that did that quickly realized that Google makes one change in their algorithm, you can literally be out of business overnight.
Right.
They make one change in the way their paid platform operates, you could be out of business overnight. And I know you know those stories, and we know those stories. And so that peaked, and then that troughed, and then people were like, oh man, we got to get back to organic business development. We got to, and the way I've always operated is that you need a portfolio.
Yeah.
You need a mix of all of these things. It's like you need an incredibly strong admissions team, and then all of the things that you're doing to then fill that admissions team with leads. Traditional business development is always the cornerstone of that. Relationship marketing and being authentic and being true and knowing who you are and what you have to say and repeating that message consistently. And then make sure your internet marketing is the same story, but produced in a way that the algorithms are happy, and we're now seeing I think we have peaked and we're starting a downward place right now with all of the AI overview. It's like what's known as generative engine optimization, GEO. That's a fancy way of saying everyone has seen these AI overviews in your search results now.
Right.
Well, if you're not ready for that, you're going to experience the current down trajectory. So I hope programs that are listening to this and people that are listening to this have got their bases covered in terms of traditional business development. But I'm here to tell you, it's like I've seen programs go out of business in the early PPC days, in the early organic days. It is happening now on organic search. And so people need to have a new strategy when it comes to that. And I'm proud to say that, we're on the cutting edge of that here at Defining Well.
Yeah. It's been really cool for me to see how it all works. SEO, PPC. But the most exciting thing for me, because, we've had experiences where our website may say something totally different than what is actually true because we used to do it 2 years ago. And so being able to work with you and Snapshot, like the communication and the collaboration and the consistency of messaging across all of those, prongs in whatever you want to call it, the umbrella.
Yes.
It's consistent, it's honest, and it works.
Yes.
And so when it comes to AI, which, it's crazy.
It is changing so fast.
Right. And so how do you, to some point, you can't, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. How do you know you're making progress if it's making its own progress itself? Does that make sense?
Well,
as far as combating it goes, or maybe not combating it, but being able to integrate with it.
Do you mean in terms of helping people find treatment?
Right.
Okay, got it. Because there's so many directions this AI conversation can go. I think the first thing that people that are listening need to understand about AI in this conversation is the way it's changing how people find things. It wasn't that long ago where SEO, search engine optimization, was all about keywords. And keywords were the key, no pun intended,
right,
to get people onto your website. Well, now what's happening is AI knows more about you than you wish it did. And what it is trying to do is discern your intent. So when you search something now, whether you're using Google or you're using ChatGPT or another tool, AI is now a buffer in there saying, based upon what I know about you, Daniel, I'm going to give you a summary of what I think I know about you, and I'm going to try to respond to your query as best I understand it. So if you think about a treatment center that's trying to show up in that environment, it is critical. It's critical that you're not trying to be the same thing that everybody else is trying to be, because AI is going to be, Daniel lives in Mississippi. Daniel, it's like it knows a lot about you. And so it is going to seek websites or Google business profiles that is specifically meant to serve Daniel.
Mm.
And so things are going to become even more hyper localized. And the notion about marketing nationally is really going to be very difficult because AI is now between you and your intent, and what gets served up in that AI overview is this whole notion of intent. And so it's got a pretty good idea of who you are and what you shop for and what you search for and how you live and where you live. And it's only going to show you what's relevant. So what does this mean for a program like Defining Wellness? What this means is Defining Wellness has to be razor sharp about who they are and who they serve and how they serve. And it needs to be served up in a way so those AI agents can read it. And that's how you get Defining Wellness into Daniel's search.
It makes sense. I've chatted with ChatGPT several times, and they've been like, based on what I know about you, comma.
Yes.
You know, I mean, that's
Yes.
insane.
Yes.
But it's incredible at the same time. I mean, it really is.
Well, the key, when you look at those AI overviews, they will often make references to the links that they're pulling information from. You really want to try to be one of those primary sources referenced in the AI overview. And the only way that you do that is by standing out in terms of what you offer. And so somebody in Oklahoma City, if they're searching for treatment for a loved one who lives in Mississippi, you might have a shot at that. But if they're just searching roughly for Oklahoma City, it's going to be very difficult for Defining Wellness in Mississippi to show up in that search.
For sure.
And I think we need to be okay with that.
Yeah, no doubt. And we talked about this yesterday, the benefits of having different avenues of lead generation.
Yes.
And visibility, alumni, BD, SEO, PPC, social media, podcast.
Yes.
People are going to know who we are across the board, different avenues. And when we run into a little bit of disruption on one end, you know, it can be picked up on the other side.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Well, I mean, like take this podcast as a perfect example. I mean, Daniel, you know I love podcasts.
Yeah.
I mean, not only are they fun, but one of the reasons they're so valuable is because they are uniquely yours.
Mm-hmm.
And it is your unique voice. And it will take nothing at all for AI to be able to index all of your podcasts, and they're going to know who's listening. They're going to know who you're targeting, and they're going to know what services you provide.
Right.
They will, and AI and Google will incentivize programs that offer multiple access points to that information. So that will be videos, that will be podcasts, that will be multimedia. Anybody that goes out of their way to then find multiple ways to reach that audience, Google will be like, that's a program we want to lift up.
Mm-hmm.
That's a program that we feel like is doing a great job. And so that's why podcasts are so important, because this is not about keyword stuffing. This is about the authentic message, and you know what you're doing on this podcast is going to resonate because it's authentic, it's real, and it can't be duplicated by anyone other than Defining Wellness.
Right. Me and Courtney.
You and Courtney.
It'll be sloppy, but it'll be real. That's
Listen,
for sure.
I love what you and Courtney are doing. And it's like, that is precisely why I'm a huge fan of podcasts. And I mean, not only do I love producing them, I mean, I listen to them and I learn stuff from podcasts. And I mean, that's the way people are, you know, they're listening to 2-hour, 3-hour podcasts now because the learning is so deep.
Right. Well, we're grateful to be where we are, and grateful to Danny for sure for coming out and getting this set up. We're going to get better and better every week.
Yeah,
you know?
and he's listening to us carry on.
Yeah, right. He loves it. He just like you and just like me, he walked through that door, and you know, I think the themes here for me as we wrap up this conversation are: surround yourself with good people, make it happen.
Yep.
There's an element of faith
100%.
in this that we haven't really touched on.
Yeah.
That I think is probably
I actually appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah. You know, you have to trust, you know what? I know I'm insane, but everything's going to be okay.
Forgive me for going here, but just
Let's do it.
Surrender.
Yep.
When opportunities are presented, I mean, you can't grasp the new rope until you let go of the old rope.
Mm-hmm.
And that has just been so, and just trust that there are people on the other side that are going to greet you and embrace you.
Right.
And even though you've had a situation where people in your past or your current circumstance those people have supported you. When it's time to do something new, there are going to be people that are there for you. And so 100% there's a faith aspect of this. And I don't bring that up, but I'm really glad that you introduced that, because that is absolutely true. I do walk through that door, not just with hubris and confidence, but with faith.
With faith. And always, curiosity.
And my past has told me that there are sages and gurus, and there's wisdom there to be gained at every step along the way. And if you remain open and willing, then it's so much richer on the other side.
Mm. Well, that's the cherry on top right there. Jeff, I have really enjoyed it. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to get into? Or
Daniel, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of what we're doing here at Defining Wellness. I'm proud of this podcast, and I know that we're just at the very beginning, but I'm honored to be walking this trail with you.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah,
it's going to be fun
for sure.
Well, that's it for us, guys. Thank you all for watching. Stream on all platforms. Check us out at our website, www.definingwellness.com. Give us feedback, good, bad. We'll take it. We're going to get better every week, and we'll see you then. Thank you.